So one thing I noticed from the game I just watched you play is thinking about Lingbane micro when you're on the front foot. So say you have speedlings and you have banes, and they have slowlings and a queen. The queen is the biggest threat to your banes, so you can put your speedlings on their queen and then use your banes to protect your lings. You kill the queen, you win, basically.
Right. Right, so I went after his Zerglings instead.
Yeah, the drones are really easy to kill, as you noticed. Once the queen is dead, then you're basically done. You won the game.
Cool. I'll be writing down some notes as well in this little document thing.
Cool.
Real quick for the people in the stream, can you guys read this? I'm sure you can, but if you can't, please let me know. So first thing, ZVZ. Speed Lingbane versus Slow Ling. Okay, cool. Cool. It is a little small. Alright.
And then just to pause real quick, your target prioritization, 1414 is a little bit different from 1312 because you can macro off the back of it. 1312, you're pretty much fully cheesing them, so 1313.
Yeah, do you prefer 1414 yourself or 1312?
I really like 1414. It's sort of a build that you can go for, and you'll almost never lose against a player with worse Lingbane control. So even if they go hatch gas pool, even if they go 17 gas 17 pool, you can kind of muscle your way through by taking better trades with fewer units, and then kind of sneak in drones behind it and keep Lingbane in their face. So I've been favoring 1414. 13 gas 13 pool is like Bane heavy. 1312. And then 13 gas 12 pool. You want to be prioritizing Bane Nest, and then Spine, and then Slowling, and Drone. So the idea here is you want to kill all their fighting units, get on top of that, and then kill their workers. With 1414, it's a little bit more flexible. Some of the time, you can just smack a bunch of their drones and get ahead and drone your own base. So like on pre-on terraces, I really like going 1414 because you pretty much get a free win against a hatch first on the gold, and then you can take your own gold behind it and transfer about half your workers and be in a great spot.
Yeah. So what do you do if you go 1414 and you face someone that goes 1312? Do you just like leave your Zerglings on creep until link speed is done? Because that's the one thing I've been running into, right? Because his link speed is built like 20 seconds earlier or whatever.
I faced it a bunch today, and it's really common on this map. Basically, the progression is you make your lings, and your lings are kind of running out on the map. Can you see pings?
Right now I should be able. Okay, try. Yep, there we go.
So your lings are kind of going out on the map. Let's imagine that you're doing 1414 this game. And then you see 8 lings that are all together. So it's more lings on the map earlier than you. You want to run back to your ramp, and you don't have an expansion. You just have one queen in your main. You make a second queen. Put your first queen on the ramp with 2 lings in hold position. And you can make those first 2 lings into cocoons. It's really annoying for them to try and focus those down, and the queen can get lots of damage in. You don't really need the second inject, so you inject once with the queen, go to the ramp and make a second queen, and then make your banes as normal, and then just go across the map and kill them, basically.
Okay. So do you spot those usually with your overlord, or... Well, it depends on the map, obviously, but...
If I'm going 1414 on this map, I'll send 3 links to each expansion that my overlord, the first overlord, didn't check. So the first overlord basically rules out one location, and then there are 2 more possibilities. You send 3 links to each one, and then rally everything to that base once you find out which one it is.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I haven't actually done that queen on the ramp thing. That actually sounds really smart. So basically what you're saying is start up a queen immediately if you see 8 Zerglings run across the map. Then follow up with... So basically what I'm doing right here, right? I don't know exactly what build this was, but... Run the queen to the ramp and block with 2 links. Okay. Cool.
Did you happen to see Pig's ZVZ Evolution Chamber episode?
No, I actually have a bookmarked. I haven't seen it yet.
So one of the main principles he talks about in ZVZ is making a 3rd queen really quickly as a way of safely defending your 3rd hatch. So this opponent that you're facing kind of droned their natural fully, and they're taking their own 3rd. But if they just go maybe 14 drones in the main and 5 at the natural, and they do a Ling Bane all in, you can't really hold that base. So going the third queen gives you a really sturdy anchor, he calls it, for defending those big attacks.
Okay, yeah, I noticed that in the last games you played today as well, where you basically start spreading some creep as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if going third... Okay, so, yeah, if you're going fast third hatchery, get the third queen faster. And by the way, the replays I selected were mostly pretty random. I got a couple that I thought were pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But I mostly just selected, you know, games that I had saved already. I don't know, you know, if they're actually, like, great example games. I'd say they're pretty average.
So your Overlord placement is pretty good. There's not really a reason that you shouldn't be at the Watchtower at this point. That's kind of a thing that I miss a lot too, but you have the same number of links. It doesn't cost you anything to be at the Watchtower and then run home if they make a shit ton of units.
Yeah.
So a good point to start unit production is at around 4 gases, which is what you're doing. Slapping the 4th down immediately is going to be a really big improvement. You notice your money just spiked right here. You don't really have enough larvae if you're making just roaches. You also need to make overlords too.
Yep.
But this is the perfect 4th base timing. So say around 6 minutes roughly.
Uh-huh. So if you have, yeah, so basically like 3 base saturation-ish. So do you mean a macro hatch or like a 4th base immediately?
4th base is much better than a macro hatch. You usually will catch up in spending. You could even make an extra queen. So like 1 queen to spread creep would make all your engagements much better, and it's a lot easier to defend your bases.
Alright, so fully saturated 3rd base, or 3 base, 4th hatchery, roughly 6 minutes. Okay.
And then kind of imagine if you made that 3rd queen before your 3rd hatch in this game, you would have connected your natural and your 3rd already, which would make it really easy to defend, and then creeping out to the left to a 4th would also be really easy.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I never connect my base in ZBZ.
Another thing you can do is move some of those just idle overlords to those areas and then have them drop creep when your lair is done.
Yep. Yeah, so the idea is obviously push out a +1 attack and roach speed. Pretty standard timing.
So getting in their face with units is pretty good. On this map, attacking into 3 base like this usually isn't going to be that successful. Mainly you want to be kind of fighting over the 4th. This division of your forces is really good though.
Yeah, so it's mostly just poking around with getting double upgrades. So this is usually the point where this is usually the moment where I feel a little stuck in ZVZ, right? Because I know transitioning obviously is great, and I end up making poor decisions like this, right? And the reason for that is most of the time because I'm not completely certain what to transition to, mostly because you know, transitioning towards lurkers just takes a very long time and it's pretty expensive. Whereas just sticking around a Roach Ravager, you max out really quickly and then you seem to be sort of stuck, if you know what I mean. Like, I guess getting the 4th base faster would help a lot with that, but...
Yeah, so if you time your 4th base at about 6 minutes, take the rest of your gases, up to 6, and Hydroden at the same time. So if you started the Hydroden when you took the 6 gases and the 4th base all at once, then your army that moves across the map is kind of purely just to keep them honest and make sure they didn't like drone super crazy and drone a 4th base. You're ahead, so your main goal is to kind of make sure you know exactly what they're doing and when they're taking their 4th base, because you have a huge edge of gas right now. So either that means you should have more Ravagers, or you should have earlier Lurkers, or Hive Tech earlier. ZVZ is all about having clear edges, which is kind of hard when both players could potentially make all the same units.
Yeah. Yeah, the 4th base is actually a really good point. I never know when to take that. That would actually have fixed this already. So you take the 4th and the Hydroden at the same time? Basically? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
If, say you're facing someone who's super aggressive with roaches, you won't always be able to like produce Hydras at this time that you did. This opponent droned 3 bases all the way before attacking you. But some players will go like 3 base mineral with 3 gas and hit you with Roachling.
Yeah. Yeah, ZVZ is currently by far my worst matchup. Well, not by far, but the other matchups are a lot better.
What's your hotkey setup for this composition?
So usually I have, actually in this case I don't have the Lurkers hotkey, I don't think, or I got them on hotkey 2. Usually I have the Lurkers on a separate hotkey with the Roach and Ravager on the same one.
Mm-hmm.
And I try and spread out the Lurkers usually basically by, you know, leapfrogging one at a time forward.
Mm-hmm. Something I really like to do in this scenario, because you have the like more powerful direct army if it goes blow to blow, is just send like 16, maybe 12 to 16 roaches just down this left side of the map and then to the opponent's fourth base, or maybe into their natural. Like if you notice, it's totally exposed during this window, and you can definitely spare some roaches since you have Hydras and Lurkers in your army. The way that I'll usually organize this army composition is have everything on one hotkey. So the Roach, the Hydra, the Ravager, and the Lurker. And then I'll have Hydras and Ravagers on one key. And then Lurkers on their own key.
Wait, sorry, can you repeat that? So hold on, let me first write down, split out, or like split up a couple of roaches for attacks, while Lurkers are up. And that second point you said, like with the hotkeys, you got them all on the same hotkey, and then what?
So main army. Oh shit, that's the wrong point. 1 is your main army. 2 is Ravager plus Hydra. 3 is Lurker. So main army includes all of those. Roach,
Oh, I see.
Ravager, Hydra, Lurker. The reason you have this second key is so you can just press that key and move it back, so those units will never be on the front line. It makes it really easy to have correct engagements where you have a really thick Roach buffer in the front, and then Ravagers behind that, and then Hydras behind that.
I see. So do you use the all army hotkey for this sort of stuff as well, or do you prefer having the one just in case of like scouting
I don't
and
use
whatnot?
I don't use all army because a lot of matches, especially like going from master to GM, one of the main differences is just having one dropper lord of roaches, and you don't really want to fuck with that. So like this overlord you have at their fourth base, if it was moved just a little bit to the right, you could send 4 roaches, load it up, and then like go into their natural, and they're gonna have a really bad day.
Yeah.
Their main army is also going to be fucked up at the same time, because it's mainly about pulling attention. Killing some workers is nice, but by pulling their attention, you can take a much better engagement with their main army.
Yeah.
So it's about the use of large and small forces. It's less linear than Heart of the Swarm ZVC, which was basically who makes more roaches and who has the upgrade lead.
Right.
Now with the drop and the Lurker and the Ravager, there's a lot more going on.
Cool. Yeah, I've been getting stuck a little bit more again in the all army hotkey in a lot of matchups just because there's so many different types of units. Exactly for that reason that you just mentioned, right? I felt like Zerg vs Zerg in Legacy or in Heart of the Swarm is probably my strongest matchup, just because it's pretty calculated, it's pretty easy. But it gets a lot more difficult with all the different little things happening. But yeah, I should give that a try. So having the Ravager Lurker, cool.
Something that I'll do to kind of train the organization of groups, especially with the composition that I'm not super confident with, is I'll just max out with that composition. So like this Roach, Hydra, Ravager, Lurker, get to 200 supply in an empty game, and just practice kind of moving the units around while also microing a drop at the same time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that would help a lot too. Cool.
When I lose to better GM Zergs like Guitar Cheese, he'll do 1 to 2 Overlords of Roach drop with Tunneling Claws. So it's just kind of adding more and more elements and pressing more and more with multitasking rather than having just one really big decisive lane of fighting.
Cool.
Definitely encourage 14-14 as an opener. It feels fantastic. You never lose to like bullshit greed. You're in a great spot against 13-12. And then if you're against someone who opens the exact same way, it's just kind of a micro battle. Feels very merit-based. Very little risk.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I've been either going hatch gas pool or I've been going 13-12 usually. I've been doing a little 14-14. I didn't really like it. I just felt a little gimmicky against 13-12, but that's a good point to be able to just pull the queen to the ramp and start the second queen immediately. I mean, it's still gonna be a micro battle from there, but yeah. So I went hatch gas pool in this one, but like you said, you know, you just immediately lose against 13-12 usually.
In the Pig Evolution Chamber episode, he talks about queen placement, spine placement, and the defensive procedure. So maybe
Yeah, I should check
put
that
that
out.
in your chat, and I'll put it in this document.
Okay, cool.
You probably already have it bookmarked.
Yeah, I already have a bookmark, yeah.
Okay.
I'll post a link to it in the chat as well for people that want to check it out.
I got quite a bit of coaching from Pig.
Yeah, I noticed that. He's really good.
The idea of having students basically work through their own Google document and keep all their notes in one place was also from him. It's really smart. Sometimes you just talk to the student and you're like, this, and this, and they try to remember it. Sometimes they take their own notes, but this is a way of making sure you walk away with something really tangible, and then when you move into the next session, you know exactly where you left off. Kind of what was going on. Okay, looks like it'll be a Roach versus Muta game, maybe.
Yep. Yeah, so this the previous game was more of like a macro focused one. This one I just saved up, so the other one I didn't want to show you. I don't actually know if this is a win or loss either. It's more of like a regular type game. So once again, third queen could have been much faster here.
It'll also help you moving into versus Muta games if you make that third queen earlier. It just builds up energy as well, which means you can defend your bases more easily. Nice worker lead. Playing versus Muta is kind of disproportionately hard, I feel like. To playing Roach versus Roach or Muta versus Muta. There's a lot of technical stuff with the building placement and deciding what to tech into yourself when they have map control with the Muta. Looks like you go for Hydra range.
Yeah, I've been going mostly Hydra Queen, and then basically just Turtle for a while, and go up to, what are they called? Vipers? If they decide to go really heavy, but this guy, for whatever reason, actually gives me most of the shit. Well, he kills the upgrade, I suppose, but usually I try and do a timing as soon as the upgrades finish on the Hydra, which is, I guess, the riskiest move in the game, but usually that's to try and counter their fourth base, so that's why the Overlord is hanging out over there, at least to try and get vision of it. And yeah, so most of the time, at least, the game seems to be decided on that move out.
It's going to be good if they maybe go for something like just pure Muta, or if they try to go greedily into Hive Tech, maybe for Ultra, you could hit that window. With this many queens, something you can kind of work on doing is fanning some Overlords out ahead of your army, and then moving your army really quickly across the map. So basically, seeing how fast you can possibly push your creep lane. Creep expands faster than it did in HOTS, so if you put an Overlord kind of here near the watchtower, and then move your whole army with the queens, you would be making it across the map that much faster.
Okay, alright, so you move, how many Overlord would you pick then? Like 3 or 4, or?
Just one, like you don't really have to be that risky. If you just put one forward and then maybe 2 or 3 queens.
Okay.
I kind of like this timing, this is cool.
Yeah, so I push very slowly, right? Just because the queens take forever.
They have a lot of banglings.
Yeah. And since I've hard countered pretty much all of the Muta stuff at this point, it's just lurkers. Lurkers are pretty nice.
Yep. And when you're maxed, adding some static D at the fourth is really good, because they could send some links and attack that really easily.
Yeah. And Ground versus Muta, one maxed.
So the principle of having the Hydras on their own hotkey would be really useful for this fight.
Yep.
Those roaches are running back. The roaches can just stay and fight, and you could micro the Hydras. Probably behind the queens would be the best avenue here.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because I split up my roaches here to try and get rid of his banelings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of unnecessary, obviously. Yep.
Transitioning out of this, taking some melee upgrades, you have 3 evos at your natural, and then going into ultra, kind of just a better version of the roach. Often the meta player will go ultras themselves, and lurkers are surprisingly not that amazing against ultras. A lot of times you still
So
get overrun.
you switch into ultras late game as well, you mentioned?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now you can usually afford it. Often
Okay.
in ZVZ, what matters more is the economy size, because that means you have more flexibility with your composition, and you can always opt to go for the same composition as them, just more of it, more production, better upgrades.
Mm-hmm. Cool. That's awesome. Alright. So we got some good points already. Especially the hotkey stuff. Do you use that in all... Yeah, you mentioned it as well a while ago. I don't know if it was on the stream, if you mentioned it on Skype or whatever. But you do that in all matchups, right? Where you have all of the army, at least like in a lot of scenarios, on one hotkey, and then basically have them split up in different groups.
Yeah, I pasted it in your chat. I'll paste
Alright.
it in the document as well. And basically you could do your version of that. So, unit management.
Yeah, so you're using the core, right?
Yeah. And then just finding something that fits for you relative to your current layout.
Yeah. So let me make this a little bigger so people can read it.
It's actually wrong. I have the Ravager with the Muta and Hydra.
Okay. So unit management, 1 for hatcheries, 2 main army. Yeah, so I'm mostly interested in main army. Muta Hydra. Lurker Swarm Host. Okay, so you have different hotkeys depending on the units that you're playing at as well. It's not like when you play Mutaling Bane, you have basically a completely different unit composition than, or army or hotkey composition rather than if you do Roach Hydra Lurker, except for the main army
I
one.
have on the same key as Viper. Usually because I won't have Vipers and Banes in the game at the same time. So there's rarely a conflict with that. When you have
Right.
tier 3, you have like Ultras and Brood Lords and stuff. And the Banes can just be in the main army. You don't need to micro them separately.
Cool. All right, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All
We
right,
got some ZVPs.
you want to do some ZVPs? Cool. That's actually already some very good tips. Especially, I'd say especially the biggest pointers here are, well, the 14-14 build, then the 3rd queen timing, 4th base timing, and hotkeying the army. I think those are the main points I should be working on here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then obviously things like you know, roach drops and whatnot. It's honestly something I haven't really messed around with too much yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I think these are good things to work on. Cool. All right. Okay, ZVP. All right.
Later. That would be a cool idea at some point.
Sorry?
Doing Archon at some point. I mean, today,
Oh,
probably
right.
getting back into your own games would be good so you can put these into practice, but just like talking through some of what's going on.
Yeah, no, Archon mode is really nice for coaching as well. It helps a lot. Alright, so this game, I actually copied this build mostly from Pig's stream. I think I played it a little greedier here with the triple hatch before pool, but it's basically... he mentioned on his stream that if you see your opponent going for a Stargate, simply go ahead and get your own Spire going and make like a bunch of Corruptors, since you don't have to worry about your opponent really doing any kind of, you know, aggressive all-ins. So you usually have time to get the Corruptors out.
Mm-hmm.
And then try and use the time that you have to build up to, like, you know, any army you really want. You can go up to a Hive, obviously, get Ultra, Brood Lord and all that stuff out, but use the Corruptors to basically buy time and see if you can snipe a base. So in this game I actually end up killing his natural with the Corruptors. And I believe I transitioned towards... Actually, I believe this is actually a transition towards Heavy Queen Corruptor because my opponent goes Stargate, but yeah.
First adjustment, this is kind of a Masters to GM adjustment. Spore timing, you would want to have it pretty crisp at 4 minutes. Notice the placement of the Oracle on the map right now. It's not going to arrive at your base until about 4:15, and this is a pretty standard Oracle timing. Even if it's proxied maybe on the right side of the map,
Right.
you'll still have time to put them down at around 4 minutes.
Yeah, so I put them down at like 3:30 here. That's true.
4 minute spores is good. Additionally, say your first Overlord kind of flies to the Gateway and Cybercore, and then it goes... I don't know where your first Overlord went.
I did that. If you go back a second, I think I scouted at 3:30.
Okay.
So I scouted a little earlier.
I like scouting the natural and the third. So the main, you can usually assume, is going to be pretty well saturated by this point. The things you want to find out are if it's going to be a shitty Adept all-in, or a greedy third, or some combination of the two. So this Overlord that's kind of by the Gateway, if you keep it here, above their natural, the ping isn't working, and then you fly it in at around 4 minutes, if they haven't taken gases by 4 minutes, it's likely the Adept attack or Immortal Zealot with Prism.
Okay, so hold on. So scouting with the Overlord at 4 minutes. Mostly looking for their third base and saturation. If no gas at 4-ish. Yeah. It's likely Adept, Immortal, Zealot, bullshit.
So you could say first Overlord scouts the natural, second Overlord scouts the third. This second Overlord you have kind of by their third. You can put it basically on that geyser and see when the Nexus starts. You can't really be punished by it unless they open Phoenix, because you could always just fly down to the dead space.
Second Overlord, always scouting their third. Pretty much.
Yeah.
So what would you say is like... Okay, no, go ahead.
ZVP is mainly about the economy reads, because they could always put their buildings like randomly on the map, proxying them, but they can't really hide their economy very well, unless they take a hidden base, which is pretty rare, but sometimes happens.
Right.
So against this, you can do the Corruptor stuff, kind of like Pig was saying. What I usually do is Mass Queen and take a fourth instantly. So whenever you see them drop the third Nexus, you can take your fourth base. Like, that's a trigger you could probably write down.
Okay, yeah. So when they take the third, take fourth. Yep. What would you say is like a normal timing for a Protoss third base in ZVP? So I've been scouting mostly around the 5 minute mark. So I believe what I did in this game as well, to try and figure out if he takes the third. I don't know if there's like any like super normal timing you're looking for. Like, let's say if it's like still not down 540, I go ahead and just make non-stop army, or if you have any kind of, you know, pointers like that. Basically what I'm coming from is like in Heart of the Swarm, if you didn't see a base around 9 minutes, you were better off just making army no matter what, just because there was no way, you know, they were going to take it after that.
Yeah, probably for Masters Plus players, like 5 minutes. If it's later than 5 minutes, something's fishy. Like, either they're going to do a bloated timing and take a late base, but with Photon Imbicharge and Adepts and Sentries, they can take their third like so absurdly early that most games, as you get up in rank, they're going to be greedier and greedier rather than doing 2 base all-ins.
Okay.
So that means that you're going to be taking your fourth super fast. So one thing to kind of fix in your macro progression is larva spending before you get to full 3 base saturation. So like this moment here, you have full larva at your third, you have quite a few larva in the main, and a lot of larva at the natural. Like, fully saturating your third, maybe oversaturating, so you're like 22 out of 16, and taking a macro hatch at the same time. And your fourth base should have been earlier than this, so say you took your fourth as soon as their third went down, you could transfer workers to the fourth as soon as it was done. That's a really big difference between Master and GM players, is GM players kind of look messy, with their drone production, like they'll just YOLO drones to a base till it's like 24 out of 16, and then they'll throw them to the new base as soon as it's done. It's a little bit inefficient for the mining time, but it's way more efficient for the larva. You're still getting most of the value from the drones that are mined, and then you get full value as soon as your base finishes and you transfer them.
Yep, good point.
Because then those larva cycles can be spent into army immediately after.
Yep.
That was one of the things that caused me to go from like low mid GM to high GM this season. Just that.
So just simply overdroning. Yeah. You see it all the time. If you watch, I noticed Stefano do it in specific. Like Stefano overdrones all bases constantly. He expands super greedily, but he also overdrones them like really early on. That's a good point.
And then like at this point here, looking at the 4th base progression, just sending the workers immediately.
Yep.
And then putting an overlord out in front of your 4th base and sending a queen out there to lay a creep tumor makes defending the big attacks at your 4th way easier.
Right. Yeah, that's for specifically this map.
And you could move the spores there as well and then put some lurkers. So a really common timing. This Protoss went Stargate, and I think your reaction is really good. You're basically doing 2-prong harass with corruptors on one side and lings on the other side. If they go for the Charge a Lot Archon Immortal push, which hits your 4th base super hard, basically need lurkers. Like 6 to 8 is usually enough, but having those 2 spores kind of out in front of your 4th base will shoot the observers, and then the lurkers are uncontested.
Right. So in this game, I actually don't transition towards lurkers at all. Would you? So you say you don't do the corruptor stuff too much, right? You just take the 4th base immediately and queen up.
Yeah, usually I go Queen Hydra Lurker into Brood Lord Queen Hydra with some corruptors at that point. I think this style is totally viable. Like, mute a corruptor, you can play that for sure. And if they're going Stargate Phoenix, then Corruptor Ling is really good.
So, Stargate Phoenix. Or first a Stargate Phoenix. Try Queen into... what was it called? Queen into Hydra Lurker. Brood Lord. Cool.
The reason you go Queen Hydra Lurker is because the ideal Protoss counter unit to the Lurker is the Disruptor. And if they go multiple Stargates, their Disruptor count is going to be super low. So Queen Hydra pushes are good and Lurkers are really good.
Yeah, I've honestly not played much Lurker against Protoss. I don't know exactly why. Just seem to get stuck on other army compositions for a while. I would say the biggest thing though is like the 4th base, because my 4th bases are really slow apparently.
Yeah, a thing that I might recommend. I think Pig is opening gasless right now in ZVP. I haven't looked at his builds too much, but if you take your gas when you take your pool and you just mine 100 for the speed and keep 1 on gas, you'll have link speed in time to defend. Like if they send 2 to 4 adepts really early and try and suicide them for workers, you'll have speed for that. And you'll also see exactly when they take their 3rd, which means you can take their 4th. So it sets you behind a little bit in economy, but you can take your 4th earlier because you know exactly when they take their 3rd.
Alright, so do you ever pressure the 3rd? Or do you just take the 4th? Like, oftentimes I find myself, if I do that strategy, I usually make like maybe up to 16 Zerglings once Zergling speed finishes, or at least close to that, so I can, you know, scout about. And I can imagine against really good players it won't make much of a difference whether or not you pressuring the Zerg. Or are you pressuring the 3rd base? Yeah, if opening on...
So something I really like about Solar's games against Protoss is he doesn't shove against the Nexus and try and kill the pylons and the Nexus itself. He knows when the probe gets sent down, and he'll snipe the probe. It's really annoying for Protoss to try and go down and take the base if there are just 4 to 8 lings that focus it down. He can delay it by quite a while, and he also sees their intention to take a 3rd base, which means he can take a 4th base and drone super hard.
Yeah. Cool. Alright. Yeah, since they basically take a 3rd base off of like 1 adept in like maybe a sentry or 2. That's basically it. Cool. My
Ravage
mouse
will
disappeared
take
out of game. Hold on, let me restart it real quick. I have this bug sometimes in a replay that my mouse just disappears. I don't know why. So I've seen you play in ZVP as well, like pretty heavy Baneling play. Do you do that only against the Zealot Immortal stuff, or if you scout like multiple Zealots, do you immediately put down the Baneling nest, or was that mostly just a style you wanted to try?
I haven't been doing that as much. Like if I'm playing a really good player, usually the Hydra Lurker tech is more solid, and massing Queens is really solid. But on a big map, like if you get Ruins of Saros cross spawn, and you see they take a fast third, you could go double Evo melee into Spire, and if they go for a big Adept or Charge Lot style, Banelings can be pretty good. So I'd say it's viable, but it's not something that I've been doing as much.
Okay. Yeah, so basically, Lurkers are Banelings on crack. They achieve the same thing.
Some people talk a lot about rank when coaching is happening. Rank doesn't actually matter that much. A lot of times it's useful to just have a second pair of eyes going over your games because the other person isn't biased. Like they didn't play the game. They didn't know what it feels like. They didn't get pressured. They're just looking at how the pieces are lining up. So they're like, oh, like, why is there so much larva here? When did you take this space? Why is this late? So I've been coached by real life friends who are many, many leagues below me who help me with things like Overlord spread. You don't need to be an amazing strategist to kind of see, oh, the mini map looks kind of dark this game. And you have a huge clump of overlords here. Like, you can learn that in Bronze League. So being okay with getting some tips from people who are lower league, it's not about league. It's about understanding how StarCraft units work and how RTS works and how you can take advantages and macro and shit.
Just to add to that point, Neuro is high GM. So he's definitely higher up the ladder than I am, but it's a point that still stands. Like, I sometimes get the argument of like, why are people getting coaching from me? Simply because I'm not like at the very highest level of play, and I would say that's, well, pretty much the exact reason right there. And I've, you know, coached so many people at this point that it definitely, you know, a lot of people have gone up multiple leagues. So I guess I'm doing something right.
For anyone who's like master or below, there would be almost no difference getting coached from you versus a pro gamer. So
no, for sure.
Okay, so you're going
we got some ZVT replays as well. We'll probably go over this after this. Yeah, so in this game I scout him going double Adept opener, so I'll open up some slow links. I actually literally just played this game today. It's the first game of today.
Okay, a quick kind of mental note about Adepts coming in. So usually you want to have your queens to zone. So having the queen on the front edge of the creep when the Adepts come up in their normal form, and then you have your lings follow the shade. So this is a bit too many lings. You noticed you actually put yourself pretty far behind in workers here.
Yes.
Just 8 lings, because that's enough to surround 2 Adepts, and then kind of follow the shades. So if they shade up to your natural, lings follow the shades, and the queen zones the Adept on the edge of creep.
Yeah, so first is 2 Adept, follow the shades with the lings. Zone with the queens. And, well, I guess you don't leave creep too far.
Yeah, don't leave creep until speed is done.
Yeah.
Game resumed.
Oh, it looks like an Adept play.
Yeah, definitely. So this is the 4-minute scout. That last game we saw was a couple, I don't know exactly when that was, but this one is a little more recent after we talked about different styles. So I've been switching it up a little bit with the sport timing and the Overlord scout timing. But then again, I probably should have scouted the natural here instead.
So having vision of both third base locations is good.
Yeah, so this is basically the moment that we discussed previously, right? Like 5 minutes, I guess I should just start making non-stop army at this point, because there's definitely an all-in for me.
So going speed roaches without upgrades is pretty good. I think you could probably get away with a ranged attack upgrade. Are they going stalkers or adepts? So the timing of this base is quite late. Saros is one of the most macro-heavy maps in the pool. So usually you would expect the thirds to go down the earliest. This is quite late.
Right. Yeah, so at this point my goal is only to defend since I already have the economy advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as I don't lose too much, it should be okay.
Game paused.
In these scenarios, since you have a really great economy, as your minerals go up, you can make queens from all your bases. If you pull all your queens, you can focus the warp prism. So the roachling is nice to chase it around, but they'll never be able to kill the prism. The queens can contest it whenever it's in the warp in mode. And you can just make more queens.
Yeah.
Game resumed.
So pull queens and recreate new ones. So I still end up losing a bunch of workers, I believe, in this one. Actually. Oh, I guess it
That
wasn't.
spore, what a god.
Well, I found that very useful. Like you said make, so anyone who missed it, we basically mentioned like, even at high GM, it's okay to just make a blind spore crawler every match in every single mineral line at the 4-minute mark. It helps out a lot against this sort of Stargate play as well, like or against Warp Prism play as well, because he was just hanging on the high ground. That Spore actually did a very good job.
Yep.
He got promoted.
Spore is
after
like
this
the
match.
strongest anti-air DPS unit for Zerg in the game. Which doesn't make sense, but it's true.
Yeah, it's stupidly strong. Like,
Wait, the building is the best. Yeah.
doesn't cost any supply either. Yeah, so at this
keeping
point I'm
the
just
Evo
running
chamber
Bloodfire.
running
Yeah.
is pretty good. It's not very often that you'll be able to break a third like this. So having a follow-up was actually one of the main leaks when I got coaching in Legacy of the Void. I would just kind of go for a timing and hope that I would kill them with it, but I wouldn't have a follow-up. So against certain players, you'll be able to close a game, but against better players, usually they'll be able to defend. And
Yeah.
you'll kind of have to fall back and transition. So thinking about this scenario, this game was against Adept Prism, which is one of the most popular things, into Immortals and Stalkers, into DTs. So really their answer, Hydra, is non-existent. Like they could make Adepts, but you have the ability to make Roaches.
Right.
And they don't have any disruptors, so Roach Hydra is a really good option here.
Yeah, I decided to switch to the Spire instead, just because of the chance of him going Disruptor. So you would play a more aggressive style, or would you tech up and get Hydras?
Usually I would drone the 4th and make Hydras. That would
Right.
kind of be the idea.
Oh, okay,
Polishing
so
off
you
your
basically
minerals.
just... Yeah, so you basically just stop producing Roaches altogether and just go Hydra Link from that point. Or at least, like, you know, for the majority of units.
You can make Roaches too. I don't attack into a 3rd base very often. Usually I'm hitting a 4th.
Okay.
But getting 16 workers on each patch, so the natural doesn't have 16. And the 4th could
Yep.
be mostly fully saturated, like 12 workers on minerals, and then both gases is usually good. So getting up to like 80 will mean that you can consistently take trades against them. This game, I think your saturation count is basically good because you know they're on 2 bases only and their main is mining out, so they're all in. And you're just trying to defend.
That's a good point, though. Take the 4th, just... Yeah, so basically, like, you probably wouldn't have made all that army to try and kill the 3rd. Because you know versus high-level players, it's likely not gonna work. So it's a safer option to just go ahead and get the 4th base going, which is... Well, pretty much 100% chance gonna work. Cool. Yeah, I will be sharing the text document later as well, guys. I'll just have to make sure it's a little more organized, because right now it's a mess. I don't know if I'll share the exact document.
You're taking Carapace.
Sorry?
You're taking Carapace.
Yes.
Obviously that's good for how you're using the Muta. Yeah, if you're fighting directly against their army with Mutas, Carapace is better. If you're harassing and kind of running around the map, Attack is better.
Okay, yep.
So the upgrade you take depends on what you're doing in the game. I think you taught me that in the video a long time ago.
Could very well be. Could very well be. I basically, at some point I made a video, if you're not sure what upgrade to get, just get armor. Because armor is pretty much always going to be better in that case. So for anyone who doesn't know, back when Neuro was new to StarCraft, Right now, he obviously way overshot me in skill level, but he also watched my videos at some point.
Yeah. The
So I hope
ZVT
that-
scouting guide is the one that stood out the most. Like the
That's
6-minute
all,
Overlord scout and what to do and stuff. I was like, oh, now I understand Terran. This matchup is easy.
Just fly that Overlord, check the attachments, and just think real hard.
Yep. Look, my brain hurts. What do I do?
Lose the game.
Switch
check
to
the boot
Protoss.
type. That works. Yeah, so usually if you're not sure what attack or what upgrade to get for Mutalisk or for your Spire units in general, just go armor. That's basically it.
If
It
you wanna
depends
go
on what you want to
Spire-
do with your Mutas. But
If you want to go Spire as a main idea, usually the opponent is going to kind of figure that out eventually, and then they'll have some sort of counter plan. And if you have a Carapace upgrade, you're going to be trading better against their like counter Muta units. So in ZVT, if you go Lingbane Muta, sometimes they'll be like, oh, Mutas, I'm going to make Liberators. Liberators actually scale pretty poorly with upgrades, so you can continue to make Muta and keep running your Carapace upgrades, +1 Carapace, +2 Carapace. And with a pretty good spread getting into the engagements, Mutas are still pretty good against Liberators. Attack upgrades, you're not going to be having a good time.
yeah. Yeah, so attack upgrades, just get them if you never plan on engaging them, pretty much.
Okay, so the opponent is going Reactor, Barracks, Reaper. And then more Barracks. This is kind of strange.
Yeah, so I've been seeing more Reaper play on the ladder lately. I don't know if been seeing that as well, but a lot of people seem to go up to like 8 Reapers,
Yeah.
which works really well if you skip the Zergling speed early on.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the main reason why they've been doing it, but I'm not sure. So I believe this is actually the yeah. So basically, Zerg versus Terran wise, I got 2 different styles right now that I do the most. So it's either Roach Ravager, basically the same thing that Solar does. So that's pretty aggressive, and then I play the more macro focused off of 3 base. So he does a lot of 2 base all-ins as well. And this is the specific game where I tried to do the build order that you gave me. So it's a lot more like laid back style where I don't actually know exactly what's going on from him most of the time. But I'm basically just trying to defend everything he does and everything he throws at me and eventually just overpower him. So it felt really weird, but I guess it worked out in this game. So
One of the like key elements of this particular style is you take a lair at a pretty fast time, so that affords you the option to go for an Overseer Scout. So this Overlord here on the map, you could fly in and you would know exactly what their setup was. So
Right.
let's say you did go for the Overseer Scout, and the Overseer is arriving at their base around this time. If you scout at around like 5:30, and they have a shit ton of production that's already banging out units, it's a 2 base all in.
right.
If it's a 3cc, they'll have like an orbital that's done, and they're about ready to fly it out and take a base. And then there's like the in-between, where it's in production and they're doing like a big 2 base timing, and then they'll take a third behind it, but this is like, fuck, I hope this 2 base attack works type of build.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm mostly scouting that with the Zergling, but I guess that's that's easier. Yeah. So if it's a lot of production, prepare for 2 base all-in. Should be seeing an orbital, a 3rd orbital. Otherwise,
If you can, the 4-minute Overlord Scout is kind of like the 6-minute Overlord Scout of HOTS. At 4 minutes, if you fly in, you can see the add-on of their starport. That's basically when they make the decision between Banshee, Liberator, Medivac, or Range Liberator.
right. Okay. I haven't seen Range Liberator in way too long.
Oh, it's getting popular again.
Yeah, so here I'm just
Sucks.
checking out what's going on, and this is pretty much the exact thing that you were talking about, where the creep threat is basically always going to be a limiting thing. Like my creep threat could have been better, and I felt like it was pretty good here, but
And then a key principle to kind of remember is anytime Terran YOLOs a bunch of units and suicides them for damage, that's like an amazing time to take a base. So you basically did that. You took your 4th once that happened.
Right. Okay.
But sometimes you forget because it's like, oh my god, they fucking ran Hellions and Banshee and shit and suicided everything. Or the drones following each other.
Oh, are they? Oh man, they're having a party over there. They want it to be one drone.
Game paused.
Okay, this is a really good thing to work on with Lingbane Muta. So anytime they're threatening you with basic bio shit, sometimes tanks, sometimes liberators, you think about what your options are for attack lanes. So you have this main attack lane where your Banes and your Muta are. Things are going up to kind of go around the fourth. That will be another flank option. And then there's another option down to the left, to the right, and then back behind them. So as you kind of move up in skill, the opponents are going to have better and better unit spread. So the more attack angles you utilize, the better trade you're going to take. And Zerg battles in these scenarios don't really require that much micro if your positioning is really good. So just having like some swarm across all your creeps. So on the right side of your fourth base, on the bottom side of your third base, and then in the center lane, you can just kind of A-click a little bit behind their army, and then you'll get an amazing surround without really microing too much.
Right. Okay, yeah. So when defending versus bio on creep, set up surrounds.
Use
Okay.
as many attack lanes as possible.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, so I haven't played Lingbane Ling Muta barely at all in Legacy of the Void. Just been stuck playing other fancy shiny units. But Muta Lingbane is still pretty nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did a little there with the attack pads, but
So you take a late infestation pit this game. I would say that's correct. If Terran's doing a 2-base all-in, you're not really in a huge rush to get to tier 3 tech because they're so far behind in tech that if you got to Ultra, they would just multi-drop you rather than like try and fight you directly. So staying on Lingbane Muta is a pretty good option for hitting 200 supply the first time.
yeah, okay. So otherwise, you would be teching up much faster. That's when you take the 8 gas, when you have the 8 gas going, right? Pretty much. Yeah, I guess automatically my 8 gas is going to be late this game. So do you use pretty much the same idea in Zerg vs Protoss as you do ZVT? When you see them take a third, just take the fourth?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if your saturation is clean, like kind of
Yeah.
like we mentioned, oversaturating your base is really hitting the drone button super hard. Your fourth base, you'll be taking as soon as you have 3 base mineral saturation, and that's when you're kind of taking the rest of your gases all the way up to 6 gas.
Yep.
Another key difference for hatcheries between HOTS and Legacy, which you already know, but it's good to remember, is it also counts as most of an overlord. Before it was only 2 supply, so it's really
Yeah.
like, do I want to expand? Do I want to take this base? Can I take this base? Now it's like, well, fuck it, I was going to have to spend 100
Yeah.
for 8 supply anyway, might as well just take a base and establish some creep and maybe transfer workers.
Yeah. We've been talking about that on the stream a little bit, where you can sort of value a hatchery as an expensive overlord and queen in one. And it works out quite well. So basically every time you flop minerals at the very least, like, it's an indication you have full saturation most likely, at least as long as you're hitting the queen injects. And take the 4 bin as soon as you hit max saturation, or you scout them taking a third. Cool. I like the Neuro doggy every now and then here. I'll put a Neuro doggy in the chat as well. Here we go. How do you counter Mass Phoenix? Well, we went over that in the previous game.
Corruptors with upgrades are really good.
Yep. Once
So
again,
go-
armor upgrades. Armor upgrades are super good.
Mass Queen Hydra Lurker. They're going to have a really hard time picking up your lurkers if you have Queen Hydra shooting them. And if someone's massing Stargates, their disruptor count is going to be super low. So it's really hard for them to deal with Queen Hydra Lurker.
That is actually a very good point. I didn't think about that. I've sort of been stuck in a mindset where early beta, they just simply managed to go for, you know, a maxed out air army. You would not be able to beat it with the carrier shove. And at that point, you sort of get in a mindset of not worrying about a ground army anymore, but just trying to kill the Protoss, you know, with the stuff he has in the air. But you
Something that
yeah, no,
I
go
did
ahead.
when that was really popular, like a lot of Protosses were just turtling for 3 base carrier and then maxing out and trying to win the game, is I would just play 2/2 Queen Hydra max out every game, and the only times I would lose would be when they go for disruptors. So it's kind of like 2/2 Queen Hydra is just generally fucking strong, and they have to give you a really good reason not to go for that. So
Right. So you go
Stargate
double
openings
upgrades
are
versus
very
Protoss?
Nowadays I don't. Like that was the thing that I did
Mhm.
a lot. Usually I'll go 1 Evo for ranged attack, and then I'll add on the second Evo and go +2 ranged attack +1 Carapace. And then sometimes I'll go melee to get into Brood Lord.
Right.
So +1 melee, +2 armor.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I guess CVP is a lot more about 2 base elements now again. It's a lot of those. Adepts are pretty good. So it's actually a good point. I've basically been getting my 4th base late in all matchups. I did not realize that. Like a lot later
Yeah.
in ZVT and ZVP, but also ZVZ.
It's kind of how we played Heart of the Swarm, so a lot of people are hesitant to take the 4th because it was a lot about 3 base attacks.
Right.
Whereas now you can expand there, like whether you can saturate it fully. Usually you can, but not always. But just taking the base is very, very safe, pretty much all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's also like a big target and health buffer. So if someone tries to kill your hatch, like that's a lot of damage they have to deal to it when your army could just be beating the shit out of them. So yeah, come at me, bro. Come attack my 4th base.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Yeah, so someone in chat's asking, look, do you have a standard replay where the Terran goes 4 Hellion into Biotank Medevacs? It's the same idea. Like, if you play the same style, it doesn't really matter exactly what they're throwing at you, because you're still managing to scout it anyway. If you have enough creep spread, that should all be pretty easy to defend. Like, 4 Hellions, you just defend with, you know, Queens for the most part. If you have a couple Zerglings, you can use those as well. Most of the time, at least once you go up the ladder, Terran players realize at some point that they're not going to be able to do very much with the Hellions anyway, so they just use it to deny creeps and, you know, maybe take some map control and all that, but... Here, Phil, I'll give you permission to post a link as well. He's been trying to to post links to your stuff, but there you go. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else you would like to discuss, or I think we checked out all the replays, right?
There's a Roach Ravager game on Dusk.
Oh, right, yeah, so that's basically the other style that I've been playing as well. I guess that's a little different than the one that you've been, or the style that you've been playing.
Could probably take a look real quick, see what's going on.
Yeah, so I took this build pretty much exactly from the build, or from the replays from Solar. And just go for a relatively, you know, aggressive push with +1/+1 on the Roaches and the Ravagers, and push out at Roach speed. So that's the basic idea. Probably also gonna be late with a 4th, though, I wouldn't be surprised. A little bit in-game chat. Yeah, so for some reason, like as you may know, I've been playing a lot of random, and the random account is actually higher up the ladder than this one right now.
So I'm not European, but how come cancer is such a thing, like on the EU ladder?
I have
Like
no
for
idea.
BM, cancer is really crucial. Like that's the main BM. Whereas on NA ladder, it's like you got some racism, you got some homophobia mixed in.
I guess we all passed that, man. We don't like. There's not that very many racist people over here, and homophobia isn't a thing in Europe for the most part.
Okay, so it's swishing cancer then. That's what's
I don't know.
left.
I get that quite a lot actually. Now you mention it, I don't know why. I find it's terrible though. I don't understand how that ever became a word that you could be swearing with, but especially in the Netherlands, people love swearing with diseases. I don't know why.
Your droning is really good this time. Like here, droning all the way.
Paused.
So thinking about this larva at the natural and the larva in the main, just all of it spin straight to your expansion and then filling the gases after. Something that I used to do and some other players do is they'll hit their hatches and then larva drone, 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 this extractor. Drone, 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 this extractor. That's much slower than just hatch larva drone. and then you kind of fix it later. You get a lot more value out of it that way.
Right, so you basically buy some more time. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I've been doing a mix of both. I think, yeah, now you mention it, it should be faster. Yeah, so spending larva more aggressively.
I kind of describe it like drone production is the gas pedal to increasing your power as Zerg, and you need someone to give you a really good reason to take your foot off the gas.
Right.
Like, excuse me, what the fuck are you doing? Oh, it's a 2-base biotank all in. Alright, I'll make some units, fine.
Right. So this is the reason why I really like the Ravager openers, and basically take the Roach one right when you take the 3rd base. Just because the Liberator stuff and pretty much all aggression is really easily dealt with. He's running me around like an idiot right now, but this was a mean point where David Kim decided to hate me.
So, like that, they... Oh, did it not die?
No, like if you go back for just a second, the queen was shooting at it, and that's one of these moments where I get triggered in game, right? Like that was sour.
But yeah, right after that would have been a good point to take a 4th.
Right.
Like, you can't drone it yet, but you had the money, and it'll establish the creep.
Yeah, I probably should be taking the one to the left, right, or to the right, right?
Yeah, this one's pretty vulnerable to tanks on the high ground, Liberators on the high ground.
Right. Yeah. So take a 4th, or taking another base after taking or after getting a lead.
So imagine this game, if you took the other 4th base and you had half your army by that 4th base and half your army at the 3rd base. When this attack came in, you could just A-move and crush them.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas now you're kind of down 1 attack lane. The 2 attack lanes would be a lot better.
Yep.
You crush the attack, spend your larva.
Yeah, that's another thing about the Roach Ravager stuff. It's really easy to spend your resources. I mean, that's just a matter of practice and a poor excuse, but...
A small thing too would be making sure you morph your low roaches into Ravagers because it heals them.
Yeah. We have a Roach. Yeah, so this is a pretty straight up game from here on out, I believe. Where he basically just goes for... he tries to hold on. But at this point, like, it's just too much eco.
Okay, you have 2 contaminates, what would you put it on?
Probably the factory, really.
And?
And...
You have 2.
Yeah, maybe the engineering bay? Something like that.
I would do that. I like the starport because
like
drops are pretty good. Drops are good against Roach Ravager. Like, it's a little bit more annoying to deal with than if you're Ling Bay Muta. So just lowering the medevac count, also lowering the Liberator count is pretty nice.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah, that's one of those things that I really should be doing, but I never really use Contaminate.
A way to make it a bit better would be to add Overlord speed anytime you're floating money. So like here, it's just 100, 100, and it researches really fast. So just hitting your hatchery button and then tapping Overlord speed really gives you a lot more mobility with your Overlords and Overseers.
That's a good point. Yeah, I've been trying to get Burrow on the same reasoning as well. I just never really... Just a bad habit you get into, where you just don't take it. Cool. That's the fort base stuff is actually very good. I wouldn't have never noticed that if you didn't let me know that. Is that Neuro on the voice chat? Yes.
Cool.
If Terran is building a Banshee, can you cancel the Banshee by destroying the tech lab? Nope. They can actually queue up multiple Banshees at that point and still produce Banshees.
Oh, I didn't know about the queue.
Yeah. Nobody does it in pro level, but you could technically queue up 6 Banshees and build them off of I actually don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty certain that it works that way. You should never be floating enough resources to queue up 5 of those stuff. But Yeah, so the transition here towards lurkers, but what about hive timings? Hive timings is also one of those things that I haven't been as aggressive about. Do you take those basically also when you have a lead or when you get the 8 gas up? Or I guess it all ties up with the 4th base once again, right? Because you need the 4th base to get that hive like properly saturated.
Whenever you take the 4th, usually you can spare enough money to make an infestation pit and just keep the tech going.
Yeah.
You can kind of think of StarCraft like war, where you have basically the numbers race, but then also the arms race of how advanced your technology is. So just having your tech constantly progressing. So you go from lair to maybe some lair tech units, but then very quickly infestation pit to hive. Hive is pretty cheap as well. So it's not really something that's going to cause you to lose very many games to just research it. And then just like watch streams of other players like Avalo. Like, what does he complain about? Hive tech units. So just make the stuff that other people complain about. That's a really good way to improve your StarCraft game. Vipers and Ultras. Well, just make Vipers and Ultras. Fucking easy to turn.
I mean, to be fair, I've been calling Ultras a little overpowered since the beginning of Legacy of the Void Beta. Just coming out of Heart of the Swarm, they seemed stupidly strong. And they still kind of are. Like, if you don't have a counter ready. Lowko, read the Art of War. I got it right here, sir. I cleaned up my book stack yesterday. I still have it here somewhere, but the Art of War is great. Alright, are we typing?
Yeah, someone was asking about replays not working. So for Windows users, it's usually in My Documents, StarCraft, and then Accounts.
You can find the replay folder really easily, but just in game. This little button, this button right here, show in folder.
Yeah.
So if you go to replays, there's a couple buttons here. You can make new folders and stuff, but this one's the most easy one. So it just opens it in Windows automatically.
And my replay pack is a RAR, so you can extract to that point.
Yeah, I got a couple that you sent me already. I can use this for reference as well. Yeah, so if anyone is watching this on YouTube as well, by the way, I'll make sure to organize these notes a bunch. So they're a little bit more readable. And I'll also put all Neuro stuff down below in the description as well. So I would especially recommend getting coaching from him if you're, you know, in one of the higher leagues. I actually stopped coaching people, mostly or above Diamond League for the most part, just because I'm getting more requests than I can handle in the first place. So I can be a little selective. So if you're definitely in one of the higher leagues, I would highly recommend it. It's really cool.